All set for the action in the new Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. Challenging conditions at Donington for round one. Dan Rowbottom on pole, Tim Harvey and David Addison in the commentary box.
And as you would anticipate, we are looking forward to this hugely. It promises to be a fantastic race. Not only have we got, as we've been saying all morning, some new drivers in the championship, people switching teams. We've got everybody on the same hybrid deployment for this race. And now, Tim, to throw another variable in, it's a wet road and it's drying as well.
Yeah, well, that just puts the cat amongst the pigeons, doesn't it? But let's hope we don't have a repeat of last year where the two guys on the front row fought it out so hard. That was Jake Hill and Colin Turkington. They let through let through Ingram to take the win. I'm sure the Napa boys won't be doing that, but a fascinating racing prospect.
So the green flag is shown and this final formation lap is underway. At the end of this, they'll re-grid and we will go racing. And the man on pole position is Dan Rowbottom, a third career pole in the Napa Racing UK with Cataclean Ford Focus as he heads down towards Redgate. Lots of Napa guests here to cheer him on, and it is an all Ford front of the grid then. One or two drivers just edging their way down towards Redgate. So let's have a look at how they're going to line up then, ready for this first 18-lap race of the year. Dan Rowbottom and Ash Sutton, the front row ahead of Jake Hill and Colin Turkington. Dan Cammish goes from fifth ahead of Tom Ingram, the reigning champion. Then it's Josh Cook and Adam Morgan ahead of Andrew Watson and Ricky Collard. Ronan Pearson, an outstanding 11th ahead of Dan Lloyd. Then Rory Butcher, one to watch to make progress ahead of Tom Chilton, Stephen Shelley and Aaron Taylor-Smith, 16th. George Gamble, 17th ahead of Aidan Moffat. Then Sam Osborne and Dexter Patterson. Newcomer Mikey Doble is 21st ahead of Bobby Thompson, then Jack Butel and Will Powell. Nick Hamilton is 25th ahead of Nick Halstead, and it's Jade Edwards who rounds out the grid. So there you can see rather bedraggled fans getting set for this first race of the season. Let's, before we go racing, try and have a quick word with George Gamble. George, new team, new engine, new car, front-wheel drive is new to you as well. There's a lot to get your head around.
Yeah, there's a lot of new changes for this year. Only my second season, obviously, so just getting used to the car still. We had a lot of pre-season testing, but most of it was wet, fortunately, to obviously the weather in this country. So I'm actually kind of relieved it's wet for today, but yeah, it's a good new experience. So yeah, hopefully we can make some progress.
So at least you've done a practice start in the wet then?
Just my first one then.
Oh, okay.
Nice one.
What about the track surface? Is that getting drier or is it going to be wet all the way through? What's the feeling? How quick is it drying?
It's I think this new surface here at Donington, it's holding the water quite well. So there's actually a line already showing, so it could be interesting at the end of the race here. So
we'll leave you to it. Good luck, George.
Thank you. Cheers.
So George Gamble for Toyota Gazoo Racing UK, and of course, as we say, first time he's raced front-wheel drive, so it's all new. They've got this new engine in the car, the Supra-based engine, tuned by Neil Brown Engineering, and George Gamble then is going to line up 17th on the grid. Out of the chicane they come. They'll slot themselves into that one-by-one staggered grid formation in a moment. Quick reminder about hybrid. For this race, there is the same hybrid deployment for everybody, which means that we're looking at 50% of the racing laps from a minimum speed, but the drivers all have 15 seconds per lap. When we get to round 2, round 3, then you start to base it on earlier race results. But for this race, everybody starts with the same allocation. That's another way that this is going to be so fascinating. So 2 front-wheel drive cars, then 2 rear-wheel drive cars. We know rear-wheel drive cars make good starts. Front-wheel drive in the wet could be an advantage. We will wait and see, because as the 2023 Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship makes its way up towards the line, a fascinating season is about to get underway. The last couple of cars come out of the chicane. Jade Edwards, Cooper will be the last. We'll get a green flag shown from the very back of that grid to say that everybody, including there Nick Halstead, is back from the warming up lap. And then strap yourself into the world's fastest straight jacket. This is going to be quite some race, I would have thought, on a greasy track surface. Reputations to be made or broken, perhaps even early on in the season. It is round 1 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. It is 18 laps, it is go, and a great start by Ash Sutton, who gets the jump on Dan Rowbottom, and Jake Hill comes between the two. There's contact, Sutton gets all sideways, he's on the grass, he's having a big moment. Jake Hill takes over the race lead. Turkington to the outside of everybody to try to find extra traction. Sutton has dropped like a stone. Rowbottom fluffed the start and got bogged down. He's in third as they drop down the hill, but it's BMWs up front. Turkington is on the attack.
Well, I was expecting those BMWs very wide there to make a good start, but Sutton just got tanked by Jake Hill and put him into a tank slapper, and there's more action down at the old hairpin.
All the Fords ganging up. I think Cammish and Sutton powering away through. Rowbottom went wide, took Turkington with him, so Cammish is trying to gain ground. That's Tom Ingram's rather limited view, and Tom Chilton is off the road. He's come a cropper down at the old hairpin, so there's been massive shuffling on the first lap. Turkington was the big loser really, because he got hung out to dry on the outside, so Jake Hill it is who has made good his escape on this opening lap. Ford second and third, then you've got Ingram up into fourth place. Ricky Collard is running sixth. It's going to be a really jumbled order come the end of the first lap. Dan Rowbottom after that pole position has dropped down, as we saw after that slow start. And so the safety car is deployed. I fear it's because of Chilton, and Jake Hill, although he will lead into the chicane, will be caught by everybody at the end of the opening frantic lap as they head up towards the timing line. So Jake Hill it will be who breaks the beam as the race leader. Dan Cammish up to second, Ingram third over the line, Adam Morgan fourth, Rowbottom fifth, Collard sixth, Josh Cook seventh, Ash Sutton is down the pit lane. Sutton is in the pits, this is his view. There was smoke coming out of the back of the car. It might be damage, it might be that he's got everything clogged up with grass as well and he's overheated.
Yeah, look, they're clearing the grass out in the front. He did a nose plough into the soft grass, didn't he, down the side, and it's overheated the engine. Hopefully he'll be able to get back out, but it may be terminal.
Yeah, the aim here is to stay on the lead lap. Now, let's have a look. It was contact. Jake Hill went for a gap between the Fords.
Yeah, the Fords tried to close the door. Sutton tries to close the door, but he's unaware that Jake Hill is already past Rowbottom and just gets into the back of him. One of those things. But that's where Sutton picked up all the mud and dirt and everything else.
So Sutton drops back as a consequence of that. Cammish goes forward. Then at the bottom of the hill, Rowbottom, I think, understeered a little bit wide, but it was a slow start by Robo that really triggered it all.
Yeah, it was. He was slow away, which gave Jake Hill the run, and Jake had no option but to go across the left just as Ash Sutton started to close the door, realising he was away quicker than Rowbottom. He goes initially straight to get the traction, and once he's rolling, he moves over. But there's the contact. He keeps his foot hard in, has to lift out as the tank sapper gets bigger and bigger, and then back onto the track, but with a nose full of grass.
So the safety car lights are out then as the field make their way then now down towards the chicane, and Ash Sutton, if he can carry on, and I don't think he can, he's going to drop off the lead lap. So
no, they're putting the trolley jacks underneath. That means it's going straight in the garage. Jake Hill's gone.
So he comes then into the chicane. Jake Hill, race leader. It's Dan Cammish behind him, who had a relatively quiet day yesterday as his two teammates were grabbing the headline. Big slide from Adam Morgan as he comes up towards the restart. So Jake Hill leads, Dan Cam by 0.495 of a second. Tom Ingram, the reigning champion, is third. Rowbottom is fourth. Ricky Collard is fifth, but he's got Adam Morgan on one side. He's got Josh Cook on the other. That's Josh Cook going straight on at the end of the pit straight, way off into the gravel.
Well, that just looked like he was never going to stop, was it? He didn't want to lock the brakes up, but had no retardation at all. So Josh Cook, I don't know if he's managed to get back on or not. Hopefully he would have been able to rotate the car and get back on the track, but it just shows how tricky these conditions are.
It's absolutely right. So Josh was a winner, remember, in the Wet Brands Hatch last year. So it's going to be one of those races, if you survive, you're going to finish pretty well, aren't you? And the top three breaking away now. Rowbottom is the best of the rest. Ricky Collard having one of his best showings. How are the newcomers getting on a bit further back? Well, Andrew Watson was 8th on the restart, and Ronan Pearson into the top 10 already. Race leaders come out of copies, but Jake Hill is trying to build that lead, but it's now up to Dan Cammish to uphold Napa Racing honour.
Yeah, some really difficult circumstances. I mean, Andrew Watson, he's really already furnishing his burgeoning career, isn't he? He's managing these conditions very well. He's in 7th place.
Jack Butel is getting a drive-through penalty for a grid infringement as the race leader Jake Hill comes across the line. 0.495 becomes 0.482. Cammish is staying with him therefore, and he's taking Tom Ingram with him. The Hyundai going better in these greasy conditions than he was in the bone dry yesterday. This is Ingram's view coming out of Redgate.
I was looking at, we were in front of Ingram's garage. His car was one of the last cars to get out into the pit lane. They were working on that car setup, springs, adjustment on geometry, and just to get the car dialed in for these conditions, and it looks like they've done it very well indeed. That car of Ingram's is hooked up.
So this is Ingram, and he's chasing after Cammish. Ingram has done the fastest lap of the race thus far, but now the battle is on for second place. That was enabling Jake Hill to get away, but Cammish breaks late going up towards McLean's, and he pulled back a car's length. Rowbottom is next up. Now, he needs to be lapping quicker than those ahead, obviously, and he's not there yet, but he is getting away from Collard, and that is Nick Halstead is in the gravel, and I rather fear that's going to be another interruption.
Yeah, that looks like it's in a dangerous place, doesn't it? So I don't suppose the safety car is out.
Yeah. Second safety car appearance then, as lower down the order, battles rage on up through Coppice. So the One Motorsport Honda there, trying to fight back. Josh Cook, of course, after his dramas early on, fell back into 23rd place. There is a 5-second penalty being given to Sam Osborne, and that's Nick Halstead. He's down at the bottom of the Craner curves, and that's going to take a bit of moving in that.
Yeah, those poor marshals are definitely not going to move that in the by pushing it on them. No, that's not going anywhere. Thanks for trying, guys, but he's buried in there. That's going to need the tractor to pull that one out.
So that car is going to need the snatch vehicle to drag it out of the way. Snatch vehicle has arrived, but big frustration for Nick Halstead, who needs mileage as a newcomer, really. I know we've seen him once already, a one-off outing, but he wants mileage.
Absolutely. You know, the more miles you can get, the better. But it's a slightly strange place to go off just right at the bottom. I don't know whether he had a tank snapper coming down the Craners or how he got there, but he sort of ended up stranded in no man's land there.
This is Adam Morgan's view of that restart, battling with Dan Rowbottom coming over the line, and that was Ricky Collard on the other side. Dive into Redgate, break late. Good move by Collard, brave stuff that.
Yeah, pulls across, doesn't get too wide. Collard is through. Look how dirty that screen is already, though. So Nick Halstead is safely out the way. He'll be a spectator. Disaster for Ash Sutton. Obviously his championship now starting off in the worst possible way, and it may well be that team have got to change the engine even before race 2, depending on how hot it's got, but that is not the way to start the season. But it's interesting thinking back to last year, because as I mentioned at the start of this, Jake Hill was on pole, then had a fight with Turkington, which ended up letting Ingram win the race, the first race, and in fact, as a result of clipping the tyres last year, Jake was disqualified but ended up winning the race. Louisa's got some reaction from Ash Sutton down in the pit lane.
Yeah, Ash standing watching this race, which is obviously not what you wanted at all, and that was a very, very short race for you.
Yeah, we had a brilliant day yesterday, obviously in prime position, feeling quite confident going into today, and obviously that's just all been undone.
The incident obviously happened very quickly. What have you got any view on what happened? It just kind of looked like you didn't realise that Jake had come through.
Well, I realised he was there, but you've got to get alongside the car, not in the rear bumper. You can see the damage on the rear of the car, and unfortunately he wasn't alongside enough. And there's a point in motorsport you've got to back out and yield that it isn't game on. So for me, I feel like he should have yielded a little bit more. You've got they class you've got to have a significant overlap, but rear bumper and an overlap. So it's a bit of a kick in the teeth. If we didn't dig into the grass, maybe a different story, we would still be running, but we've actually done quite a bit of damage under the front, under the bonnet.
What damage have you done? Because obviously there's a lot of work going on up there. Any idea how long it's going to take to get it sorted?
We dumped all the water out of the engine, so that's not good. Yeah, fingers crossed it's not an engine out job. But as you can see, everyone's hands on deck getting the thing ready, so I'm confident in them boys.
Fingers crossed for you.
Cheers, boys.
Understandably very disappointed Ash Sutton, so talked about the contact between him and Jake Hill. Let's have another look, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why Ash feels like that, but if you look, he's moving to the right. He's moving quite aggressively to the right, just as Jake is already there. So it's not as though Jake has gone into the back of him when he's driving in a straight line. So, you know, I think he has to take some of the responsibility for that contact. But it's a typical start line incident. No one's really to blame. It's just a bunching. But I can understand his frustration.
So we are now on to lap 7. The race distance, remember, can be extended by up to 3 laps once we have these safety car periods. The safety car is going to be in this time, so we will go back racing at the end of this lap. Race order is Hill, Cammish, Ingram the top 3. Rowbottom is 4th, Collard 5th, Watson 6th, Morgan 7th, Dan Lloyd is up to 8th, Ronan Pearson is 9th, and George Gamble is up into 10th.
Yeah, some great performances there. And one other little tweak that we've had to the regulations this year is that they can use the hybrid on the first lap after the safety car. Last year they had to wait, so they could all be on the hybrid if they need it on this very first flying lap once the safety car's in.
So the field now turning its way up through Coppice. Drivers getting ready for the restart. 1 or 2 gaps that we need to close, you could argue. There is George Gamble. Ahead of him is Ronan Pearson, up from the mini challenge. So it's an all-new category for Ronan, never mind the car. But of course George Gamble was a race winner last season up at Knock Hill, and now switching to the Speedworks run Toyota Gazoo Racing UK Corolla. Right, that's his view. Riper's still working overtime as he comes down towards the chicane, but Jake Hill is about to lead them back into battle then as he comes now onto the power, into the chicane, tries to get the drop on Dan Cammish. Ingram is 3rd, Rowbottom is given a lifeline, 4th to close back up as we go racing again, but Jake Hill's BMW looking fleet of foot, comes across the line, trying to build that gap down to Redgate then. So we start now, lap 8 of 21, that is the new distance, 0.3 of a second was the margin, but Rowbottom doesn't stay with Ingram. Look, the top 3 just edge away ever so slightly.
Just a bit. They've got a little jump there. It'd be very interesting to see how the battle between the rear-wheel drive BMW and the front-wheel drive cars behind pans out as the track drives a little bit. Which car will use its tyres or save its tyres better? Traditionally in the wet, the front-wheel drive cars are better, but this is sort of half and half, really. It's greasy conditions.
And it could be, of course, a little bit drier by the end as Gamble makes his move against Ronan Pearson, and he will go through on the inside up through Schwanzkirch for 9th place. So George Gamble has done it, gained a spot. Behind him, look, Rory Butcher comes up to have a go at Pearson, his fellow Scotsman. Stephen Jelly next in the queue as well. Aaron Taylor-Smith in the Astra. He goes to the inside line, looks at the front-wheel drive Vauxhall, lines up to have a go against Jelly. These are the race leaders, and Rowbottom does now, over the course of the lap, start to come back at the top 3 just a little bit. For 5th place, though, Collard versus Watson. Andrew Watson is an absolute man inspired. If you've never come across Andrew before, believe me, he's a very, very accomplished GT racer. But this is some touring car debut, bearing in mind he's never raced a front-wheel drive car before.
Yeah, look at that exit. He got a terrific exit from the chicane. He's been the revelation. For me, he was a revelation of qualifying to get that car up into the top 10. I haven't seen him make any mistakes at all so far this weekend. His first race in the dry. Bearing in mind, he's not come as Ronan Pearson, unfortunately, has gone wide. Jack Newton has also come in the pits. But yeah, Andrew Watson has come from big GT cars with ABS, traction control. He's twice a Le Mans competitor. He has no experience of this type of racing or this car. So it's a hugely impressive performance.
Yes. We've seen him at TOCA meetings many years ago in Ginettas, but as Tim says, he's been racing around the globe in GT cars of late. Right, there's 3 race leaders covered by 0.8 of a second at the start of this lap. Jake Hill, Dan Cammish, then Tom Ingram. Dan Rowbottom is 4th. Battle on for 5th as Watson tries to go around the outside of Ricky Collard, who is also looking mighty. He's the best of the Toyota trio, and Watson gets 2 wheels on the grass, but he keeps his foot nailed to the boards, drags the Astra out the other side of the corner. For Carstore Power Max Racing, Andrew Watson is on the outside line, but Ricky Collard breaks late, goes back through. They're both being caught now, but by Adam Morgan for Team BMW. First race that he's done for Dick Bennett's team is up across the line they come. The gap between the leaders, though, has come right down as well. Cammish has done the fastest lap of the race. Where to look next? Stay with Watson and Collard. They're virtually side by side. There are the race leaders. Look how close Cammish is now. Yeah, that's
very interesting. Cammish has set that fastest line, and as I said, it's all about tyre wear, all about tyre management. That BMW's getting a little bit wide, isn't it? Yeah. And Ingram is sitting there patiently.
But Rowbottom is not staying with them, so the Ford on pole position, not revelling in these conditions. Watson is through indeed. He's ahead of Collard, and now Morgan comes up to have a go. Behind them also Dan Lloyd, who missed out on the top 10 showdown yesterday, but Dan Lloyd for Team Hardy's up into 8th. Ronan Pearson, really sadly, is down the pit lane after all the good work. He had that trip through the gravel, which has done some harm to the Hyundai. Right, 3 for the lead into Coppice, lap 10 of 21. This is George Gamble's view. He is all over the back of Dan Lloyd now to try to make a move for 8th place. Cupra versus Toyota.
Yeah, both very similar cars, aren't they? Now that's interesting. That's interesting. Jake Hill is driving the wettest part of the track to cool his tyres. So he can obviously feel his tyres getting a little bit overheated, moving about, squirming about the tread blocks on the wet tyres. And he's looking for the dampest part of the tracks to cool it down a bit.
So Dan Cammish comes through behind him, 0.347 of a second back. Then you have got in third place Tom Ingram as they break for Redgate. Dan Rowbottom is almost with them, and he'll be really frustrated with this, partly because of that start, but it just doesn't seem that the car has got quite the pace that it needs in order to get right onto the back of Ingram.
This is Morgan on board, getting an inside line coming out of Coppice, getting a run on Ricky Collard and getting an overlap as they get down to the chicane. Carried good momentum. That was good driving.
So that puts Adam Morgan up into 6th. Colin Turkington, who got hung out to dry on the first lap, is way back in 13th place behind Stephen Jelly. We've not really mentioned Colin since. He's doing his best to go forward, but there are quite a few rather disgruntled drivers come the end of this race. Colin Turkington's going to be one, but at least he's in the points. Ash Sasson we've heard from, and he is decidedly Albert's mother, and there are 1 or 2 others that are going to be further down the order than they would like to be. So lap 11 out of Coppice, it's still Hill, Cammish, Ingram for the race lead. There is Turkington. That's Hill again cooling the tyres.
Yeah, Turkington's race just unravelled on that first lap, didn't it? But it's one BMW, one Napa, Ford, and the champion Ingram at the front.
Now Cammish close enough to think about a move, isn't he? Look now, going down towards Redgate. Dan Cammish upholding Napa Racing's honour.
He's going to
try
go round the outside.
Yeah. Has he got the grip? Not quite enough grunt coming out of the corner. Jake Hill fends him off, and Tom Ingram is just sitting there waiting to pounce, nose to tail down the hill. Ingram not using the wiper. He doesn't want to smear all the gunge on the windscreen, but what he's just about being able to see is an inspired Cammish crawling all over the back of Hill. And where does the move come? Because Cammish now looks irresistible.
Yeah, what a difference to 12 months ago when Cammish's car was on fire and he had a nightmare of a first meeting. But that Ford Focus is gripped up now. Yeah. He's all over the back of Hill and really difficult now to defend. And Ingram that could get a run. This is what will help Hill.
It should also help Rowbottom, shouldn't it, to try and catch up? They're holding each other up. So yes, as Cammish delays himself by attacking, Ingram comes up to have a go at him. Hill gets away by a couple of lengths. So Dan Cammish then tries to attack, and he will be equally determined. Ingram saying, come on, let's work together and go after the leader. Stop battling with me. Let's work together. Let's go. Let's close. So Cammish, after yesterday, when he was the third of the Fords, is now the trailblazer. That will give him satisfaction, of course, to be the best of the Napa Racing fleet. Over the timing line they go, 0.2 of a second between them, and Cammish now crawling all over the back of Hill.
Yeah, that was the indication, for, as you said, from Ingram. Look, I'm not going to try and attack. You can get off, you're clearly quicker, and you can open the door for me to come through.
So Cammish down the hill, but Jake Hill is doing a good job of defending. He's not yet cracking under any pressure, is he? Cammish, we know, is a fierce rival. Down they go, nose to tail into the old hairpin. Now Jake Hill, after a weekend at Goodwood driving older cars, is probably well suited to the feel of this, of course, of the car moving around underneath him. Dan Cammish right there behind him in second spot, climb up towards McLean's, Ingram third. And again, look, Rowbottom is almost there, but if anything, he's being caught by Andrew Watson. Star driver of the race, Andrew Watson is fifth and closing for fourth place in the Vauxhall.
I bet Andrew Watson cannot believe, you know, everyone's been saying how difficult touring cars, and he's up there in the top 5 in the league group. I bet he can't believe it. I bet the Powermax team can't believe it. They have found a little star in Andrew Watson.
And he's getting closer all the time to Robo, isn't he? Then in fourth place. So BMW, Ford, Hyundai, Ford, Vauxhall. Real spread of brands, real spread of teams in that leading quintet as they cut through the chicane. What's Colin Turkington up to? Well, he's alongside Stephen Jelly for 12th place, but Stephen fends him off. Rory Butcher is ahead of the pair of them in 11th. Across the timing line comes there Rory Butcher. Great battles rage on lower down the order. Josh Cook's recovery has put him up into 15th place after his plunge through the gravel going down towards Redgate. So for the race lead, downhill they come once again. Battle on for the lead, battle on for fourth. Rowbottom versus Watson. Credit to Jake Hill, though, for hanging on in there. There's Watson, still fifth, but he's getting closer and closer to Rowbottom all the time. There they are.
Yeah, still a long way to go in this race, actually. 6.5 laps, so still a long way to go. But wow, Watson has, you know, no disrespect, there's been some work done by the Power Max team on aero and trying to get the best out of that car, but they certainly haven't. Has he got an overlap here? Not quite, not quite. But, you know, that team have not come into this having done the sort of development that Napa Racing have done. He's really got some grip. They've got a great setup on that car.
He's alongside Rowbottom now, who tried to defend, but Watson has lined up, looked for the inside line down to the chicane. Fourth place is his, and he might yet get onto the back of Ingram, you know. So out of the chicane, Dan Rowbottom is being warned about track limit offences, so it's purely an advisory flag, not a penalty, as Hill leads Cammish by 4/10 now. Ingram is third, Watson is fourth. Now Ingram to Watson is 1.6 seconds, and Ingram's view is getting ever more limited.
It's really difficult, because if you put the wiper on, you can see him on the hybrid there, the blue light flashing, but if you put the wiper on and there's no fluid in these cars, it's just a wiper, there's not enough rain to make it wet. If he puts a wiper on, it'll just smear it everywhere.
Well, he's almost driving blind. There is a car ahead, but I can't tell you where it is. There's just about a faint shape of the back of Dan Cammish's Ford. An amazing effort that by Ingram. You can understand why he might need to drop back just a little. The danger is he gets caught by Andrew Watson before the end. Jake Hill, though, is doing everything he can to fend them off. Dan Lloyd goes off the road. He was in 8th place. He's going to tumble down the order. So the first beneficiary there will be George Gamble.
But look how Watson has already gapped Rowbottom inside a lap. He's already put 5 car lengths to him. So I think he will catch up to the back of Ingram. Is a podium really possible on his debut?
Yes, on this evidence, it absolutely is. From 9th on the grid. So he's not just new to the team, he's new to the championship, he's new to front-wheel drive, he's new to touring cars. What else is he new to? Well, he'll be perhaps new to this podium if he gets there. Somebody will give him a map of how to get there, I'm sure. Over the timing line, Hill to Cammish, 3/10, come down and announce. Ingram is third. Andrew Watson's last lap was a 16.7. He's lapping quicker than the 3 ahead of him. Andrew Watson is now faster than the 3 leading cars, and Stephen Janney has had a drama coming out of the chicane.
Yeah, nearly half a second faster as well, so he is going to close that gap down very quickly. All these cars are really moving about on their worn, wet tread blocks now. You could see them squirming as they came down Craner curves. But Hill just is managing this, isn't he?
Yeah. And that shows, doesn't it, how drivers continue to evolve, because a year ago, 2 years ago maybe, Jake would have been slightly more nervous, perhaps little errors might have crept in, but right now, find wood to touch, he's looking absolutely rock solid. We talk about how the drivers get better and better and better, and the likes of Jake Hill or Dan Cammish or Tom Ingram or Ash Sutton, they've not peaked yet. So Hill it is who has led all the way after that first corner. We're on lap 16 of 21. The gap has never really been more than half a second, and yet he's managed it, and Cammish isn't close enough to make a move.
No, but look at Watson. He's halved the gap already to Ingram. Another lap and he'll be on his back bumper.
Colin Turkington up into 11th. He is closing on Rory Butcher. There they are. So George Gamble is 8th, Aaron Taylor-Smith 9th, Butcher 10th, Turkington 11th, Josh Cook 12th. Over the timing line, the lead gap crept up last time to 0.4 of a second. Big flash of the lights there. Ricky Collard on Adam Morgan as they came down to Redgate. Now there for the race lead, Cammish has fought back. He gets a good run out of Redgate into Hollywood, and on this lap it's a proper push.
Yeah, he may have been just biding his time a bit, but certainly down through the Craners, the Napa Ford looked very hooked up. The BMW sliding around, but we know fantastic car control. Look, they're both on the hybrid, both lights going. But maybe they've been saving some hybrid for the end of the race, and that may be the difference, who's got it on one lap or not.
Well, looking at the timing data, Jake Hill has got 2 more laps of use, Dan Cammish 3 more laps as they come then now out of Coppice. There you've got Ingram in third, inching back up. Ingram to Watson was 0.6 of a second at the start of the lap, but it's going to be less, I would have thought, by the time they get to the stripe. Right, Cammish is running out of laps now, running out of options. He's going to have to really commit and commit soon.
Yeah, he has, but he has got 1 more lap of hybrid left, more than Jake Hill.
Replay here of Colin Turkington losing a place to a very committed Josh Cook, fighting the One Motorsport with Starline Racing Honda up the inside and going through. Right, Cammish to the outside line, it's game on. Starting lap 18, Cammish has a go. Hill fends him off, Cammish tries to switch sides, contact between the two. Similar really in a way to the contact that Ash Sutton suffered from Jake Hill, but Jake survives that, and Cammish crawling all over the back of him.
Let's see who's on the hybrid as they come out the old hairpin. That's where they'll be using it. neither car, can I see the light? Well, yes, it's on. It's on with Jake Hill. He was deploying it later, but he's using it to stay ahead. But maybe Cammish will have it next lap and he won't. That'll be the tipping point when one has it and one doesn't. But the driver behind doesn't actually know where the driver in front is using it unless he can see that sideline. But it's getting very close. And the trials of someone like Colin Turkington with more experience in the BMW than anyone else shows you how difficult it is.
George Gamble hasn't used any of his hybrid according to the timing screen, so whether that's that he's a bit busy or has a problem, we'll find out post-race as the leaders come into the chicane, then absolutely nose to tail. It is Jake Hill under huge pressure now from Dan Cammish over the timing line. Hill has soaked up pressure for that lap, a very committed lap by Cammish, 0.172 of a second. While they're squabbling for the lead, Andrew Watson is thinking about the podium for third. He's closing on Ingram. Cammish wide into Redgate, wants the undercut and goes for it now. Can he get right up alongside the BMW? Oh, so close. This is Cammish's best chance of the race lead. He's got the inside at Hollywood. He's going to be on the outside for the first part of the Craters. Then the inside line for the old hairpin, and Dan Cammish will go through and he leads.
Fantastic. He timed that absolutely perfectly. This time he managed to get the cut back coming out of Redgate instead of trying to go around the outside, and he was brave enough to chance it round the outside of the left-hand part of the Crater curves. Great move.
So if Cammish can get past Hill, thinks Tom Ingram, so can I. I can't see much, but I do want another place, and I've also got Andrew Watson breathing down my neck, so Ingram is the next one to monitor. But look at Watson looking for a way past him for third. He goes wide at Coppice, and he's got some traction on the outside line, or has he? He gets run wide a little bit, has to back out of it. Yeah, welcome to touring cars, Andrew.
This is how we race at the front. We run you wide. And in fairness, Andrew backed out of it very quickly. You can see that was coming. But yeah, that's how we do it. He may have been able to pass some of the others earlier around the outside, but you're not going to pass champion Ingram like that.
Right, so Andrew thinks, OK, right, lesson learned. Here we go again. Behind, in a rather lonely fifth, is Dan Rowbottom. And then in sixth place is Ricky Collard. Replay here of the recovering Tom Chilton getting up the inside of Bobby Thompson. Remember, Chilton was off the road on the first lap. This is for 16th place. And the race leader, Dan Cammish, then is now on lap 20 of 21, and he's getting away.
Now, interestingly, according to our graphic, Ingram has 2 laps of hybrid left, and neither Jake Hill or Cammish in front of him have any, and Watson doesn't have any behind either, so he's the only one with some left. And
he's using it coming out of the old hairpin. Battle on further back. Adam Morgan, who is the best place of the Team BMW cars, as opposed to the Laser Tools racing with MD Motorsport BMW. He is there in 7th, but he's pretty busy still because he's got Toyota and Vauxhall and Honda behind him, meaning that you've got Collard, Gamble and Taylor Smith there as well. Right, the race leader Dan Cammish heads towards us. He now has to go into tyre cooling mode, but look at the way that he's pulled away from Jake Hill. There's going to be one more lap to go at the end of this. Can Ingram find a way through, or is he going to bank points?
Well, I think he's going to have a go if he can. He's seen Cammish go through, and you have to take the points when you can, especially at this point in the season. He's on the hybrid.
So he goes down towards Redgate. Ingram wants to gain a place. He also wants to make sure Watson doesn't find a way past him. Jake goes defensive. Ingram is boxed in behind him. Now, where's Watson? He's right there on the back. Look, he has not given up for a podium, has he? In the Vauxhall, he goes to the outside at Hollywood. And even though Ingram is on the hybrid, look at the way that Watson tries to stay level. Couldn't do it. And that battle's going to help Hill.
Yeah, because Watson, remember, hasn't got any hybrid left, so that's why Ingram was able to power past him just before the apex there. But he's still got some pace. He's still got good grip, good pace.
You saw Ingram using the hybrid. Watson has run out of hybrid, but he wasn't able, really, Ingram, to pull much further away. And Andrew Watson is still there. He has still not given up. There's Jake Hill hanging on to 2nd place. Dan Cammish, though, is on target for the race win. Really good effort to put him in the lead of the race. But for 3rd, Ingram versus Watson, absolutely nose to tail as they come out of Coppice. For Dan Cammish, it's going to be a 10th touring car victory as they come down to the chicane. Jake Hill should be good for 2nd, and I think Ingram is just about going to hang on for 3rd, but only just. Cammish turns right, turns left, checkered flag awaits. Round 1 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship is a 10th career win for Dan Cammish, who comes across the line, but look at 2nd. Ingram and Jake Hill, it's a virtual dead heat between the two of them as they come across the line. Jake Hill given the nod by 93 thousandths of a second. Andrew Watson 4th, great debut. Dan Rowbottom 5th, Ricky Collard 6th. Next charge to the line, over they come at 6th place, Ricky Collard. Morgan 7th, Gamble 8th, Cook 9th. Good recovery. Aaron Taylor-Smith 10th. Butcher 11th. Turkington 12th. Moffat 13th. Dexter Patterson 14th. Tom Chilton 15th. There is delight for Pete Osborne and the rest of the Napa Racing UK team, because after the dramas on the way to the first corner that put straight away Dan Rowbottom on the back foot and effectively put Ash Sutton out of the race, honour has been upheld by Dan Cammish, who just flew under the radar a bit yesterday, but he's come out fighting when it matters.
Absolutely. You know, the two other Napa cars were on the front row. Rowbottom made a bad start. Sutton got tagged, and Cammish seized his opportunity, and he was the fastest man out there, had that fastest lap. And, you know, whilst Sutton and Rowbottom to a certain extent, obviously Sutton majorly lost points, so too did Turkington. So it's a dream start for Dan Cammish.
Absolutely right. What a difference a year can make, as you were saying during the course of the race. 2 seconds was the margin. Jake Hill hanging on to second place by 93 thousandths of a second as they came across the line. Remember, Donington is one of many circuits where the start line is in a different place from the finish line, the timing line. So the timing line is closer to the exit of the chicane than the start line itself. So there's less chance to make a move coming out of the chicane on the last lap. And so Tom Ingram so nearly did it. And Andrew Watson for 4th. One of the stars of the weekend.
Absolutely. I'd love to have seen him get a podium, but that is even so a wonderful race, a wonderful result.
Talking of results, Dan Cammish comes out on top of round 1 of the championship at Donington. Jake Hill finishing 2nd, and Tom Ingram wraps up the podium. Andrew Watson 4th, but he's the winning independent. Dan Rowbottom 5th, ahead of Ricky Collard, then Adam Morgan 7th from George Gamble, Josh Cook and Aaron Taylor-Smith rounding out the top 10. The top 15 score points, so that would include Rory Butcher, Colin Turkington, Aidan Moffat, Dexter Patterson and Tom Chilton, who finished ahead of Bobby Thompson, then Sam Osborne, Will Powell 18th, Dan Lloyd after a trip through the gravel was 19th, ahead of the other rookie, Mikey Doble. Nick Hamilton 21st, ahead of Stephen Jelly, who had a spin. Jack Mutel a couple of drives through the pit lane, one for a penalty. Ronan Pearson was a lap down after his dramas early on. Nick Halstead we lost. Ash Sutton, of course, we knew after the first lap. And Jade Edwards, I fear, never quite got into the race with the freshly rebuilt car.